This is Diane Murray at Southern Art Gallery. Today we are going to paint this little sunset painting for an intermediate class I'm teaching. It's all going to be about glazing. So in order to know which colors I need to use to make up these mixtures, I went ahead and tested my palette, and I know that this violet is a very warm violet. It's also very bright violet. So I used ultramarine blue and I used quinacridone rose to make that nice soft but bright violet. It's desaturated in the back. It's more saturated in the front. The orange is made with the same quinacridone rose and lemon yellow, and then some new gamboge. That's Daniel Smith's new gamboge, which is a little bit different than the other gamboges. The greens are made with ultramarine blue and that gamboge, and a little lemon yellow to lighten up the lighter areas here. So let's glaze this and see what happens. I've already traced it off on my paper, so it's ready to go. So first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and lay down I'm going to wet my paper so that I have a soft transition, and I'm going to do the sky first because that's the way I like to do it. And I'm going to go ahead and start with the clear water. This is Fabriano Studio watercolor paper that my students use. I'm going to go ahead and wet right over the clouds. And I'm not going to just soak the paper. I'm just dampening the paper so that we can get a nice even wash. I'm using a mop brush here. This is the Da Vinci Casaneo. First thing I'm going to do is lay in my lemon yellow over the entire area. Very bright colors. I usually paint on a greater angle than this, but I wanted you to be able to see what I'm doing here. Now when you're glazing, you want to lay down your wash and then you want to dry it completely before you lay on another layer of paint. Because this yellow can go behind, it goes behind the clouds, and yellow is a component of orange, I can just go ahead and lay in this yellow everywhere. And that will give me this beautiful luminosity underneath the oranges. It's very hard to get a bright enough orange in watercolor, especially if you're mixing your oranges. Okay, so we're going to put that in, and since I'm going to be glazing the trees as well, and we know that yellow is in the green, I'm going to go ahead and put the yellow wash underneath the green, being careful not to mess with that tree line in the back. So I'm just going to do it this way and come along here. And this is just an underwash, so it's not going to be perfect. Let's see if I did that right or if I messed that. I think I messed that up. Actually, more like that. That was supposed to be violet back there, but that's easily corrected. You can just take a flat brush and gently lift. Well, that's green, we know, so we'll just lift this area back here. It's not that hard to correct watercolor, really. This is going to be a muted violet anyway because it's in the background, so that'll be pretty easy to correct. And over here, we have the same situation. So I'm just scrubbing that ever so lightly. And a little bit back here. Because we want this muted violet, this grayed violet, to show through back here. Okay. So if you do make a mistake like that, it's easily fixed. Just don't scrub your paper too much, or you'll end up raising the grain on the paper, and then you will have a problem. So, okay, so that is the yellow. Because these are complementary colors, we're going to let this dry completely before we go in with the violets, and we will be back shortly. Okay, let's go ahead and lay in our muted violet. Now I'm doing this on dry paper because I want control over where this violet goes. And remember, we corrected this right here. Just going to softly lay in this. This is a distant tree line back here. So it doesn't really matter. It's going to all be part of this violet, so you can just kind of lay it all in there. And because the green is darker, it'll go right over these trees. And you don't want a hard edge here. And I'm leaving some highlights in this far distant mountain range. The brush I'm using does not carry a lot of water. This is actually a new brush I'm trying. It's called it's made by King Art. It's a nice detail brush. I'll just add that like that. Has a nice point on it. I'm not sure if it's going to work out or not. It holds very little paint. I can tell you that right now. These small detail brushes do not carry a lot of paint. And I want this to be soft back here. So I can keep this fairly wet within here. And I'm just going everywhere. This is like an underpainting. It's just showing me where the violet goes, where the yellow goes. And as we add more layers, the definition will come out better. So that brush is not good for laying in a wash like this. So I'll go back to my favorite brushes. This is these are soft aqua brushes by Raphael. They're synthetic squirrel. I paint primarily now with mop type brushes. So I'm just going in here because that's going to be that area that I painted by mistake. We're just going right over the trees and just keeping this wash smooth. Okay. And just soft. Okay, so there's your mountain range. Let's be sure we don't get any kind of watermarks there. So keep your moisture even all throughout here. And we probably won't do too much more to this far mountain range in the back because we want that to be really pale. This one is going to be the one that's going to come forward. All right, so we're going to let that dry. Catch this soft edge right here so we don't have a hard line there. Okay, and there you have it. This does go in that direction, so we'll make sure that goes down there. Just softening this with more water. The problem with those little fine brushes is that they do leave brush marks if you're not really careful. That's why I'd rather paint with a larger brush that holds more water. And I'm just going behind these trees so that they don't look pasted on. Okay, let's try that and see what we've got. Okay, I've pre-wet the sky again. This time I'm dropping in a mixture of New Gamboge and lemon yellow because the sky is so bright. It's particularly right along underneath the clouds. So I'm just going to keep this. It's already, remember it's wet, so I can just take my time and lay down a nice clean wash. Get a little bit bigger brush there. And it does get a little darker in that far corner up there. So we just need to pay attention to that. So just lay in another wash here. And this paper is buckling quite a bit, but it is student grade paper, so if you want to use a better quality paper, please do. Okay, it dries. It does dry. It does flatten out though as you go along. All right, I'm going to lay another wash of the Gamboge underneath the tree line again, just to make sure that that's going to be earthy enough for us. Just dance your brush around, just to remind you where the trees are. And it's really fine to overlap some because you don't want it to look pasted on. So and we've got a much darker area down here in the foreground, so we'll make that a little bit darker darker yellow, just to remind us of that. Okay. I'm going to dry that. We'll be back.